right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream today. We are here for Title Tuesday. I know that we're all hyped up for the Speed Chess Championship, but that's not going to be taking place until tomorrow, starting at 9 Pacific time. And then the day after, we have an early match, a couple of hours before that, with Magnus and Artemiev. And then later in that day, we have Hikaru playing. So that'll be the Speed Chess Championship. But we've got a little bit before the Speed Chess Championship. Today is about Title Tuesday. So we should be having a lot of fun here today. Let's see how many players we currently have signed up. There are 587 titled players signed up right now in Title Tuesday. There are going to be more signed up, obviously, in the next 2 minutes, 38 seconds before we start off here. We are going to have something like 3,000 games between titled players, some games between Super Grandmasters, and we are just here to enjoy all of it. So welcome to everyone here in the chat. It is great to see you here. I see that there are some comments about a slight desync in audio and video. So let me see if we can make some small adjustments there. And we'll try and fix that real quick before we start. Got a couple of minutes before the games get underway, so we have a good chance to tweak that here. All right, I think maybe like a 200 millisecond adjustment might fix it. You guys let me know. Give me a moment. Tell me if it seems like it's more in sync after that. All right. Give me some feedback on that. Let me know if that addresses it, like a couple of milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, couple of tenths of a second, something like that. Making an adjustment here on the fly. 1 minute and 30 seconds before we start here. Hungui says try 400 milliseconds. I might try that, but I'm going to wait for Trust Kane's feedback because Trust Kane is an expert here. All right. So Trust Kane, tell me how much you want me to try. More? All right. So we'll give it a try. Not in sync, but better. Hopefully better. Okay. Try again. 400. 400 for the sync. Give me some feedback there. All right, Trust Kane, how are we doing? Looking for the love from Trust Kane. It's good now. Okay. 400, 450, and we have a winner. Okay, 450 and we have a winner. That works for me. Okay, 450. Chess.com Tom says 500. So I'm going to let Bigfoot and Chess.com Tom argue it out, and I'm just going to do whatever the winner says. We're at 450 now. We're at 450 now, which is about 200 players less than we currently have in Title Tuesday. We have a 450 millisecond audio adjustment, and we have over 650 players currently in Title Tuesday, and it is starting in 3, 2, 1. And the games are underway, and we are going to switch to games. Of course, we're going to start by following Hikaru Nakamura. Duh, easiest decision ever right here. Okay. Whoa. I clicked on Hikaru's name, and it took me to not his game. It took me to his player page. Okay. I think we're fixed there. Okay. So Hikaru is going to be obviously the top seed in this event, but we've got a lot more players. I'll summarize the players who are signed up now as we get underway here. So Hikaru is seed number 1, right? He's seed number 1. But then we have Fedoseev as seed number 2. Now Hikaru and Fedoseev are playing in the Speed Chess Championship. They have the match against each other on... Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday with MVL and Aronian. And then Thursday is Hikaru and Fedoseev in the afternoon and Magnus and Artemiev in the morning. So this is another chance for Hikaru and Fedoseev to really get at each other. Hopefully we'll see some game between them at some point, some kind of warm-up match, warm-up game before the Speed Chess Championship match on Thursday. Third seed today is Ronak Sadhwani. Man, he has a high blitz rating. So Ronak Sadhwani here from India, one of the most talented young players from India, and that's saying a lot. Third seed, Samsevian, Mkhitaryan, here from Armenia. Zhagalko already won a game. Andrew Tang, Daniel Dubov, so many more players here. Mamedyarov is in here. If we get a chance, I'm definitely following some of Mamedyarov's games. I don't think he plays as much, so his rating's a little bit lower, but he's still in here and does have quite a good rating. Okay. After some time, it seems like we're getting good feedback, or much better feedback on the audio there. So that's really, really good. Yeah. There are so many people in live chess right now, by the way. There are so many people. I think today we are going to have over 8 million games played on Chess.com. That is true. I don't know if that's going to be the first time we've had over 8 million, but we can have crossed 8 million many days before this. This is huge. 8 million games. And Title Tuesday is going to be like something like 3,000 of them. And 3,000 of the best of those 8 million games, of course, because we've got so many good players in here battling in this tournament. What is going on here with the king on f2? Hikaru is just crushing MJ Ray 79, a candidate master from the UK. Right here, his king is exposed on f2. The computer evaluation is saying -7, but what's the finishing blow here? It's a position where you look at it and you're like, the king is on f2. It's got to be over, and Hikaru is going for the knockout here with knight g4 check and bishop to d4 coming. Okay, the king is going to be forced up to f3 after that, and then where is he going? He might just have knight h4 check, and then rook takes and queen takes. So maybe that. Come on, take the knight. You got to take the knight. Now bishop d4 check. Surely that's the follow-up. King f3 and queen g5. Okay, so not something like knight h4. There are probably many ways to win. And Hikaru is just going to pick off this pawn on g4 here. And that's just GGO. And what a GGO for the first round of this event. Very, very pretty stuff. Now, when he captures on g4, he might have a skewer, but probably it's just going to be mate. Probably there's not going to be any time to win the queen in some way like this. Probably it's just going to be mate. The king would like to get back here, but you'll just check again, and the king is going to be forced up. It's probably like mate in 3 at this point. That's insane. Wow. Hikaru really flexing in this first game here. Of course, he's what? Like getting close to 1,000-point rating favorite here. He's just such a huge favorite, of course. You know, MJ Ray is always going to have, a really tough job here to try to actually come out, with a half point or a full point. It happens every so often. Every so often you'll see a first round upset for Hikaru. There have been some in the history of Title Tuesday. But this particular win that Hikaru is achieving is very nice. And bishop d4, the quiet move to cover all the escape squares. Queen takes back and queen g3 and queen f2 and checkmate. That's some beautiful stuff there. That's some beautiful stuff. Congratulations to Hikaru for starting with a fine win there. Let's find another player here. If you have specific players that you want us to follow, then please do post in the chat here. Let us know which players we need to be focusing on. I'm going to go look for Mamedyarov if I can find him. I might not be able to find him. Some of these games are already finishing really quite quickly. But yes, I found Mamedyarov's game. All right, we're going there. Any chance I can get, I'm going to be following Mamedyarov. I just love his chess so much. It looks like he's winning here. He's got the white pieces. His rook on the 7th rank is just beautiful. Probably there's a good chance of a mating net here. Although you've got to break some defenses, right? You can't like come in here and mate because there is a defender on the long diagonal. So you're not quite getting that. You also don't have an easy way to check on the light squares. So it feels like it should be mate really soon, right? I mean, the king literally has nowhere to go. The black king is stuck on g8. Any check would finish the game. Ooh, bishop to d4 here, and then rook g7 mate. But if bishop d4, then you have rook c1. No time. You can just pick up the knight. Okay, so he does that, which is very nice. Very, very nice. Camus says, I've never seen bishops aligned like this. Absolutely true. And now bishop to d4 check, and then picking up the rook is very nice here. And everything's collapsing for black. Not much you can really do here. About time to resign this one. So we'll move on to another game. We will check out the number 2 seed in this event. Big Fish, he already won. White won on time in this game. No! He's playing black. He lost this game to No Way Jose. Oh, wait. This is This is the game that loaded when I logged into live chess. That is not a game in the tournament. That is the game that loaded when I first logged in. It's in my observed list at the top here, but Fedoseev was playing warm-up games, and I thought he had lost his first round game. That's not what happened. I'm sure he's going to win his first round game. All right, let's find that first round game. It's already over, so he's already picked up that game, and he did win it. All right, so we're actually going to look for a game in progress now and see who is here. Okay, next up, top-rated game, Penguin GM, so Andrew Tang of Cloud9. And he's up material here. It looks like his king could be a little unsafe here on c7. So this is an interesting game. But he's playing for a queen trade. So obviously if black can trade queens, then it's very easy to win. With the queens on the board, and of course you're going to play queen a7, it's a little tricky still. I know we're seeing this -4 evaluation, but the king isn't too happy in this spot. All right, and a5 was a nice move to stop any attempt by black to trade queens. But this is a good maneuver by Andrew, right? He pulled his rooks back. The queens are off the board, and rook f4 is really not going to get it done. But there wasn't really a way to save that game at that point. So at least this player did manage to expose Andrew's king a little bit, create a little bit of sweat, create a little bit of nerves. But ultimately, Andrew, of course, finds a nice way to deal with any attacking possibilities that really makes it look very, very easy. I see Camus asking, is Andrew Tang living in North Korea now? Probably. I can't imagine any reason that Andrew would have changed his flag unless he's living in North Korea. Basically, Andrew is the Dennis Rodman of chess, right? He's courtside in North Korea as they're having their like top chess Korean championship with the very, very best players in Korea, probably about 800 rated would be my guess. I'm not really sure. And Andrew's rooting them on, right? The Dennis Rodman of chess. Okay. So let's jump to some of the other games. We should be getting close to wrapping up round one now. I think a lot of these games are finishing really quite quickly. Is this Eric Rosen? No, this is... I'm going to click on it just to see who it is. Oh, Eric Ronka. He tripped me out because I only saw the first 6 letters of the handle, and I was like, well, we've got to go follow Eric Rosen. You know, everyone loves Eric Rosen, but this is a different Eric. And this is a position that should be drawn. This is the kind of end game you get in the kind of final minutes of a lot of rounds in Untitled Tuesday. You know, you get these rook and knight versus rook grinds. You get these rook and bishop versus rook grinds. And it's really hard to get the full point in a position like this, but you got to play it out, right? There are definitely ways for white to blunder here, for white to lose the game, both through just a massive error and through some excellent and challenging play from black. This is much easier to draw, though, than the rook and bishop versus rook endgame. Okay, but you can take that. You can take the knight there. He could have taken the knight. And there would be like a trick to exchange off the rooks, but everything is just drawn, of course. All the pieces can leave the board. Oh, he wins it. He's got knight d3 coming. Oh, black does get the win here. Very, very nice. So black has knight d3 coming here after the only safe move, king b2. You pick off the rook and you win the game. Of course, when you're playing with a 1 second increment, these things are going to happen, and it does in this game. Nicely played by black to create some challenges, put the king on the edge of the board in a spot where there could be some tactics, and of course the knight is always tricky in blitz. Even really strong players often say that the knight is worth more in blitz just because of all the tricks that you get. The way that the knight hops is just much harder to keep track of, right? If it's like a bishop, you're just like, I don't put the pieces on the same color as the bishop and I'm okay. But with a knight, you got to worry about all those forks. Things move quickly. It's a little bit trickier, a little bit harder to deal with. Camus says, Sam, do you think online chess is at its peak? Right? Do you think online chess is at its peak? I can say empirically that that is true. I have seen the data. I am familiar with the data. It is objectively true. There is no real disputing it that online chess is at its absolute peak right now. It's absolutely blowing up. There have been other great moments in online chess, but this is peak online chess. Absolutely no doubt about it. All right, we're on to round 2. That was one of the last games to finish, and we're going to follow Hikaru again. I want to know which players you think we should follow. I know you want Hikaru. I know you want Andrew Tang, but give me a list of players. Like, throw names at me, and I'll make sure that over the course of this 11 rounds that we try to tune in as much as possible. So I'm going to stick with Hikaru right now, but we're going to be bouncing to as many players as we can, and I want to follow the players that you guys want to follow. Okay, we do see Fedoseev mentioned. Of course, we're going to follow him as much as we can. Absolutely. Jobava. Right, we should follow Jobava. Mamedyarov. I'm going to follow Mamedyarov. You don't have to tell me twice to follow Mamedyarov. That's happening. I mean, if we have a Super Grandmaster who plays G5 at basically any chance that he can, I'm going to follow them, right? Mamedyarov plays the Budapest Gambit as a Super Grandmaster. I'm going to follow him. It's going to happen. Absolutely unavoidable. Are MVL and Danya playing? I've not seen MVL or Danya in this particular event. Now, they might be further down the list, but they're pretty high seeds. I think I would have seen them. Of course, it's also possible to late join in the Swiss, so they might get in even if they're not here right this second. So it's possible that they jump in at some point. Ginger GM, Dubov. Dubov is, of course, super high up on the list. LP Suppy. Yes. Yes, we will try to follow him. And he's got a really high rating. Suppy, for those of you who don't know, won a brilliant game against Magnus Carlsen a while back in some casual games on Chess.com with a queen sacrifice, queen c6. Even Magnus seemed really impressed and seemed to really like the game. And Suppy is one of the best players in Brazil. I think a lot of players may only have heard about him, if they've heard about him at all, from that game against Magnus Carlsen with the amazing queen sacrifice. Look it up on YouTube. Suppy Carlsen, you'll find it. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should. But he also played the Brazilian Speed Chess Championship that we organized exclusively in Portuguese a little while back, and he absolutely crushed the field. Like the other players, I think lost something like 7-2, in all the games. All the matches were just absolute blowouts. That was the first time I heard of him and became aware of how good he was at Blitz. It's not a fluke that, he has a really, really high rating on Chess.com. Yeah, you guys know the move, Queen C6. I see you calling out. And yes, we should follow Jose Martinez. Okay. Lev? Is Lev? Levy? Is that what you mean? Did you drop the Y for some reason? Are you talking Gotham Chess or are you talking about someone else? I need clarity there. There are a lot of Levs. There are a lot of title players named Lev. Okay. Very interestingly, this endgame is actually quite balanced. So obviously Hikaru, we would expect to win playing against an international master. We still expect him to win, but right now things look really, really even. It does seem like maybe Hikaru is a little bit better, but a very little bit. I like Bishop E6 from Black. Actually, the engine doesn't seem to like it so much, but I thought it was really nice. The idea of trying to get a trade here, which does damage the pawn structure a bit, but half opens the F file. I thought that was really nice. But in general, this is pretty balanced. It's going to take a lot of effort here from Hikaru to win this game, even as a huge favorite in the game. Now, this is, of course, nice. He's trying to bring his king up, and Black is trying to trade pieces. There's one open file on the board. Hikaru says, okay, if there's one open file on the board, but you can't invade on it, then I'm going to keep the rooks on the board. More winning chances. That's actually a really, really good kind of tip that you can use in your own games, I think. In general, when there's one open file, it can often lead to trades, but if you're trying to win, if you feel like there are reasons that you should be able to press, maybe the only reason that Hikaru feels like he should be able to press here is that he's much, much better as a player, and I'm sure Black would, of course, have to concede that as well. You got to watch out for E5 check here, by the way. Then you're going to want to avoid trading all the pieces down on that open file. You got to try to keep some pieces on the board. Okay, so we did go for E5 check. There's an exchange, so now we have some imbalance, and Black has to worry about something like Rook G7, Rook H7. But even if you get that, the king can just go to G8. It's not such a big deal. But there are some ideas now, some possible mating nets, some ways to try and pick up this pawn here. And the computer's starting to say that all of a sudden things are going Hikaru's way. He does pick up the pawn on H6 and simultaneously defend this F6 pawn. Now there's possibly some bishop checks and pullbacks that could be really, really dangerous as well. So he's really starting to look like he's going to deliver on that full point that we of course expect him to get with such a high rating compared to his opponent. So rookie 3, I guess you're trying to get some counterplay down here. I don't know if you can get away with it, but you need some counterplay, so certainly a good effort. And I Am Sheng in the chat says, Sarah's pretty strong, one of the top female players. Yeah, and I actually hadn't seen the full handle because it was blocked on my screen. Yeah, black is Sarah Kadamal Sharia. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing this name, and I apologize. In fact, I think she often goes by Sarah Kadam, so I apologize if that's too familiar, but I've heard her called Sarah Kadam by some friends, which is a much easier name to pronounce for some players with clumsy tongues, and she is a fantastic player. She did get outplayed here by Hikaru. Bishop c4 or bishop to d3 is a really nice move, threatening mate down here. And you're also threatening the bishop. So of course the bishop can be captured 2 ways, but there's mate, so you can't really get away with it. And I don't know that she's quite delivered. I don't think she quite ever won the Women's World Blitz Championship, but she's been very, very close, right? Even as a lower seed in the event, she's really performed well against much higher rated female players in other events. And I think that in general, she's one to watch if you've never seen her before in women's chess and in chess in general. She does super, super well. Okay, so we're getting some requests for Arabic Falcon. Congratulations to Hikaru on another win. Let's try and follow his game. So we'll switch over now that Hikaru did come up with the win there. Is this, I think this is for Arabic Falcon. Nope. I'm going to tell Bick that the names are so big because the adjustment that he applied to the font size here, that it's almost impossible for me to click on the game and not the player handle. And I keep opening tabs by accident as a result. So I really don't like that. But I don't have a solution. Okay. Congratulations to Titus scoring a big win against Sergei Zhigalko. Okay. I cannot find Arabic Falcon's game here. Name's getting cut off. All right, so we're going to have to switch to a different game, and I'll have to come back to Arabic Falcon, who is Grandmaster Salim Saleh, of course. All right, Mkhitaryan is the highest seed still playing. He's getting a win there. We're actually going to move on really quickly. Of course, he stops the h2 pawn. He's going to cash in with a full point right there. I think I might be able to do a better job of switching games if I load all the top seeds games right at the beginning, and then I can switch between them very quickly after that. I might be doing that for future rounds. That might be happening. Ligson says, can we create a poll for how many viewers like the eval bar on or off? You would be amazed. You would be amazed at how many times we have done that poll on how many people like the eval bar on and off. And the answer is always when we run a large enough poll that people like the eval bar. But there is also always a significant and vocal minority who says absolutely don't use the eval bar. It is the worst thing to happen in the history of chess. And yes, Robert Hess, please stop stuffing the ballot box when we do these polls. We know you don't like the eval bar. We don't need you to tell us again, right? We do have a lot of perspectives here on the eval bar, and I do understand the concern. Greg Shahadi is saying the eval bar broke chess. I would say the eval bar makes chess more accessible to more players, but I get that for those of you who want the purest experience, the most educational experience while watching games, it does interfere. Okay, of course, Black won this game. Congratulations to Ward on that one. All right, we should be starting with, I think, round 3 in just a moment. Round 3 is underway, so I'm going to load a whole bunch of games right away here. First, we do have Hikaru again, but I'm going to try to switch to some other players as we get started here. I'm going to actually fill up a bunch of game tabs to follow, including Fedoseev, who was mentioned, Sevian, who is famous, of course, for playing Greg Shahadi, who is in the chat. We are going to follow Dubov as well. We're going to try and make sure to tune into all of these games. Aryantari, Parhamov, let me get a full list of games that we'll make sure to tune in on this round. As many players as you recommended as I can get here. Okay, so oh my goodness. Greg Shahade was just commenting in the chat, and he had also found time in between commenting here and sharing his opinion on the eval bar, a totally fair opinion, that it's ruining chess. He had also found time to start with 2 out of 2, which means that he is now playing the second seed. So Greg Shahade has won 2 games out of 2 games and now gets the number 2. I like the harmony here in the numbers. All right, let's see how Greg does against Fedoseev. He's doing great to start here. What the heck is Fedoseev doing? Fedoseev started with b3, bishop g4 in response. I actually saw this move recently suggested by some players. And queen c1 and f3? What is Fedoseev doing here? Fedoseev is playing with fire. This is so disrespectful to Greg Shahade. Oh, and Greg hops in here with knight e4. Oh my goodness, the eval bar doesn't like it, but it looks, because of knight f2, you have knight f2 to block. Greg was counting on the prettiest checkmate in the history of chess, and he's just not quite getting it. But what happens if queen f6 here? So after queen f6, how are you dealing with all the pressure down here? You're probably going to have to sacrifice with rook takes h4, right? Yes, that's forced. There's no other response. Okay, but now you can like capture on d5, I guess. And I guess that eventually, in time, in a long time, Fedoseev will unwind. His king is not happy about being on e1, but it's not exactly checkmated, and eventually he's going to get out of all of these kind of knots that he's in, and he's probably going to be able to win the game. Lixon, we do appreciate discussion about the eval bar. It is just a thing that has been circulated as a topic of discussion for a long time, which doesn't mean we can't discuss it again. And we've just found over time that opinions really haven't changed. We definitely know that some players don't like it. Whoa, that changed things. See, the thing about the eval bar is it tells us that the last move, d3, was a very, very bad move right away. And that this move also was a really, really bad move. And I wouldn't normally be able to process that so quickly if I'm also responding to chat. And I think even super grandmasters, right, if they're responding to chat, they're not going to be able to watch the board at the same time. And the eval bar is like, hey guys, watch this. So presumably the reason that this was so bad, pawn d3 here, was knight g4, right? So after knight g4 instead, I assume Fedoseev counted on queen d2. Is the problem there that maybe you can do something like queen? I don't know. How do you finish this off? Knight g4, queen d2. The engine wants pawn f5, f4. Not a thing I'm going to see. Honestly, not happening. So evidently knight g4, queen d2, and then pushing the f pawn forward left Fedoseev so tied up that Greg would have been better in that position. And instead he captured on d5, and Fedoseev is able to unwind. And we're going back to the game position. And now with the king coming to d2, the extra material is mattering at this point. How much extra material is there? So it's a knight and a bishop for a rook and a pawn. So theoretically, there's something like material equality on the board, right? But of course, the knight and the bishop are going to be much superior. And now you really need to worry about rook h1 in some cases. In a lot of cases, rook h1 is almost certainly happening, I think. And that's going to be really, really challenging. Gadel1 says, that's why I like the eval bar. I'm too old and slow to keep up with the game. I mean, there's just so much happening, right? There's so much happening. These are literally the best chess players in the world. There are over 700 titled players in this event, lots of super grandmasters, and they're playing 3 minutes with 1 second increment. There are over 3,000 games that are going to take place by the time that this game finishes. There might well be an immortal game that gets played, and it's so hard to keep track of all of that and all the great discussions that are going on, all of this stuff. And really, just do justice to the richness of the chess that's being played without that kind of assistance of the eval bar. So if some people want to hate on it, I understand, totally fair, go on hating on it. But for many of us, it's just going to allow you to get so much more out of the games that you are watching. All right, I assume that the knight is probably coming back to e3 at some point to get rid of this bishop on g4 because it's kind of a bone in white's throat, right? You want to play for queen e2 and I think try to trade the queens, but you can't do that with the bishop on g4. Oh, now he wants to trap the queen. And that certainly looks like a great idea. Really cool move. Knight f1, and the knight is going to h2. Now, this is the kind of thing that the eval bar absolutely hides. It's just the richness of the ideas. Because Fedoseev has been winning for a while, he's still winning, but the idea of knight back to f1 and then over to h2, it's a very human idea. Other moves were probably also plus 10 or something like that. He was totally winning. But this really nice clean idea of swinging the knight on this unique journey around to the h2 square so it could trap the queen, right, is really something to appreciate. And the eval bar might tell you when a move is good, but it doesn't tell you when a move is pretty. It doesn't tell you when you've when you've got something really special and worth cherishing. Greg Shahadi says he lost because of the eval bar. He also just subscribed. Thanks, Greg, for subscribing to the channel. He has been subscribed for 16 months. That's fantastic. He says he lost because of the eval bar. Well, you're not supposed to watch it while playing. And he says he thought it was mate if he took the knight. Ah, yes. So Greg jumped the knight into e4 here, which was such a pretty move. And Greg is saying that he had a hallucination, of course, because this looks like mate, but the knight can come back to f2 over here, and queen f6 doesn't quite get the job done. I wonder if, did you see this position and then not in the position in the moment consider rook takes h4? Because I think only rook takes h4 works. You're still mating if there's not rook takes h4. Yeah, you're joking, of course. Right. And there was a later opportunity, Greg. According to the engine, when you played your knight over to f6, according to the engine here, knight g4 is just stronger. Basically, I think because you're able to maintain pressure, and in this position with the knight here stably placed on g4, there's like f5 coming, and also queen to g3 is a move that the computer's liking. And e3 starts to be vulnerable, and it's very hard for Fedoseev to unwind. That was kind of the last point when the computer was like, Greg's doing really, really well. And after this, it seemed like the computer was like, okay, he's unwinding and should be able to kind of get out of all these contortions that you put the Super Grandmaster in. Let's give a shout out, everyone in the chat. Give a round of applause to Greg here in the chat, playing Grandmaster Fedoseev and just absolutely going for it. I don't know if you follow Greg on Twitter, but you should. One of the best things about his Twitter feed is all the great games he shows where he just goes for it against all kinds of awesome players. He usually is posting great highlights from Title Tuesday or other events that he's playing, and you should definitely check him out. Give him some applause for a great and entertaining game there. Going for ideas like 94 is always going to get the attention, of the commentators here, right? Whether it's me or Grandmaster Hess or anyone, we're always going to want to see moves like 94, right? And you guys do too. Cheers, Greg. All right, let's check in on some of these other games. Let's see how Hikaru is doing. Well, Hikaru has a big pawn. Very big pawn on g3. It's a very big and very nice pawn on g3. And the game is not over yet. I think, no, it is. It is. Sorry, I saw the eval bar adjusting. I thought that the game was still in progress. He's already won, and of course, the idea of queen h2 is just a decisive idea here. Brutal position for black. Let's back up for just a moment. Yeah, so this was a bit of a grind from Hikaru. This was a grind, right? He had an extra pawn here. This is certainly a position where he's going to be able to press, but he's grinding. This is one of the things that Hikaru is best at. I think Hikaru has a reputation justly deserved for being a great calculator and great tactician, but he's said himself that one of the things that he's really good at is grinding in these kinds of endgames, especially in blitz chess. And one of the reasons that often Magnus Carlsen can be a tough opponent for him is actually Hikaru's style today is a grinding kind of style, and so is Magnus's style. And so it's a little bit harder for him to create, chances against someone who's so good at the same sort of style that Hikaru often uses to win in fast games. All right, so it worked for him very, very well in that game. Nice grind, just slowly pushing the pawns. The king looks like it might be exposed. It never is. Totally safe. And as the pawns get down there, Hikaru gets his win. Sevian versus Reader. This one over, but I don't know why. Why is this one over? It's still complicated. I still see time on the clock. Maybe it was actually a forfeit on time. And the clock just doesn't reflect the last few seconds that elapsed. I'm not sure. Dubov, Nair. Okay, this one I think is... Why are the clocks not updated? Is this game over? I'm using the beta play, which Daniel Wrench specifically told me to do. All right. So I'm going to blame Daniel Wrench for my usage of the beta right here, but it really seems to be affecting the clocks here. The clocks don't seem to be updating. Some of these games finish. Huh. All right, I'm not quite sure, so I'm going to clear these games out of the observed games list, and I'm going to bring up some new games. We already have new games for the next round. Okay. I don't know why the result wasn't popping up on stream. I think that this is a bug that I'm going to have to report. Okay, so we've got Hikaru's next game against Grandmaster Conrad Holt. Okay. And I think that this is actually a good moment to try and pull up standings too. Let's try and do that. So we can switch over. We can show the standings at this point. Yes. Number 1, 3.5 out of 4. Okay, the way that this works is that round 3 has just started here. So Dragocell just had a very, very quick draw. Bit of a Grandmaster draw. He's a FIDE Master, so FIDE Master draw. So he's in the lead right now, but all these players who are behind him now have perfect scores and are going to be trying to pass him and get that 4 out of 4, perfect start. That includes Fedoseev, Dubov, Santo Blue, who is Vehap Sanal. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it from Turkey. I apologize. My Turkish is not so good. Merhaba to all the Turkish users in the chat. Darius Firch, Liam Vrolik. All right, there's got to be some other players. I don't think that this is fully sorted. Yeah, this isn't really sorted by rating like it should be, I think. It's sorted by tiebreak. Okay, that makes sense. It's sorted by tiebreak. So some of these players have better tiebreaks than Hikaru, but Hikaru is there on 3 out of 3. So as we get later into the event, this will be a little bit more meaningful, but we're seeing an early update to the standings. We'll be seeing the top list kind of update as we finish these games, and we see some players reach 4 out of 4. No one's reached 4 out of 4 yet, though. Tunda Mike says, no coffee cup emote in /chess. It's missing. Chess.com Chris, if you want to add that, there we go. We can add that. We can add a coffee cup emote. Every channel needs a coffee cup emote, I guess. Is a channel really complete without such an emote? Okay. So still an interesting game between Hikaru and Conrad Holt here. Lots of action ahead in the game. Nothing decisive has really happened yet. So the game is still in a balance. So one of the games that if you've not seen it, you should really check out from Hikaru. The greatest move that Hikaru never played happened against Conrad Holt in a US championship. And so the reason I say that it's the greatest move that Hikaru never played is that Conrad Holt resigned like 2 moves before Hikaru was able to play this amazing move, queen to g2. And it was going to be a queen sacrifice. And there would be knight takes g2, forced by Conrad Holt, the only way to stop mate. And then Hikaru was going to have, I think it's like knight f3, but it's going to be a smothered mate after this incredible queen g2 mate. Queen g2 check, right? This queen sacrifice. So if you've not seen that yet, check it out. Google Nakamura Holt. You'll find the game and try to find that queen g2 mate that never was quite played in the game. Holt resigned right before Hikaru was able to deliver this very unique, very cool smothered mate. Hikaru actually said afterwards that he was a little bit frustrated that Holt did not play it out because it was so pretty. He really wanted to have the move happen on the board, but Holt resigned before, which is of course typical among grandmasters, but this was kind of unique, and Hikaru admitted that he did really want to get to put the queen on the g2 square physically in the game, but he was denied that opportunity. Okay. Suddenly, Holt's starting to look really strong with this passed a-pawn. The pawns are equal, of course, but this d4 pawn is not likely to go anywhere. The d4 pawn is kind of stuck at the moment. Meanwhile, this pawn can potentially go down the board pretty quickly. And Hikaru has pushed the f pawn up the board. Ooh, knight d5. Not even capturing this pawn here. Instead, bringing the knight in. Okay. And is the pawn kind of stuck now? Is the pawn going to be captured in a moment? Now, there are ideas like queen e1. Whoa, king up, king f3. That's really, really cool. It's crazy, but it's hard to figure out how Holt can make progress. I'm kind of wondering if we could see something insane, like this king really, really marching up the board, like a Taman Short kind of king march. And maybe in some amazing moment, we could even see some kind of checkmate with the king helping out. Now, that's pretty far from happening, but I can see the king starting to run into this open kingside area as it's checked by the queen at some point. But still, it's not easy to get a check. Ooh, the computer did not like that attempt to trade queens. The computer wanted Hikaru to just sit there kind of and not go for the queen trade. Pawn a2. Queen takes a2, queen takes c1. Okay, so Holt's up a piece. All right, Hikaru's trying for some tricks. He's got a mating idea, but now his knight falls. And Holt should win this game. We might even see, maybe, it's unlikely because I think that Holt should win without needing it, but we could potentially see a knight and bishop checkmate. And bishop e3 and bishop f4 wins the queen, and that is game over. In fact, you don't even need after king h2 to win the queen here. After king h2, Holt can force mate here with queen to f2, king back, and then queen g1, and mate. That was a very, very quick finish at the end. The moves really came in a flurry. Let's move on quickly to some of the other players in the tournament. We're going to jump over to Sam Sevian's game. He's playing black, right? But congratulations to Conrad Holt. Round of applause for him in the chat. Always incredible to see an upset of a great player like Hikaru. That was a really exciting game. But ultimately Holt gets that one done. Well done. Well done to Conrad. Oh, and we do see an invading king in this game, but the king should not have invaded. We're seeing that white is really trying to push for a win, and it's going to be okay, though. So for a moment, as the king invaded and black picked off those pawns, I thought that black might even be able to try for a win, but it's going to be a draw eventually. So FIDE Master Esapunov gets a draw versus Sevian. Congratulations to him. And we'll keep switching as these games start wrapping up. Okay, this is over. Fedoseev does win here. He's going to be promoting the d-pawn. Well done. All right. Are there any games left in the tournament? These games are over here. How did this game finish? White wins? No, draw by perpetual. Draw by perpetual in this game. Okay. We are on to... No, we're not on to the next round yet. There are a few games still going. 6 games. So we're down from like 300 games to 6 games. Okay. So we've got International Master Rud Makarian versus Drop Stone DP. Is Konrad Artemiev, says Rachid. Konrad Holt? Which Konrad do you mean? Because if you're asking about GM Konrad Holt, it's a C. And no, that's Grandmaster Konrad Holt. That's not Grandmaster Artemiev. If you're asking about Konovets, that was Sevian. So that would be a significant butchering of the handle there, but I don't think that's what you did. I think you're talking about Conrad Holt. But Konovets is Sam Sevian, one of the youngest grandmasters in U.S. history, and a really, really talented player. Right, Artemiev is Sibelifen, but I don't think he's playing today. He is playing tomorrow in the speed chess. Nope, he's playing the day after tomorrow. He's playing the day after tomorrow against Magnus Carlsen. Levan Aronian and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave are playing tomorrow in the Speed Chess Championship. Artemiev is playing on Thursday early against Magnus Carlsen. So you will get to watch Artemiev, but not today, not in this Title Tuesday. And Dropstone is Grandmaster David Paravian. All right, and we're going to be taking a break. So that's 4 rounds done. You see the standings under my camera right here. Fedoseev, one of the top players. We did see a defeat for Hikaru there. Peter's Fiddler in there with 4 out of 4 too. We are definitely going to have to check him out. Fair Chess on YouTube as well. On Draken, we missed these players in the early rounds, but we're going to jump over and check them out at some points. But we're taking a break. I'm going to switch over for a moment, and we will be back again after our Fair Play team has had a chance to look at some of these games and results. All right, everyone, welcome back here. We are back with the start of round 5 here. We're going to try and follow some new players. Hikaru is playing here, but I want to follow Svidler to start because we hadn't really gotten a chance to check in on him. I actually, honestly, didn't notice his name as I scanned the early list of players. He often jumps in at the last minute. So we are going to switch over to Svidler's game now and check him out. He has been doing really, really well in these events. Fantastic player, of course. I think many Title Tuesdays in a row. He's one of the top finishers near the end. Super strong player, always exciting to watch. So let's try and check him out right here. Okay, so he's playing Frost Nova, and theoretically Frost Nova is the higher seed. Not theoretically, Frost Nova is just the higher seed in this particular game. But of course, Svidler is a legendary player. His blitz rating here, not accurate. He doesn't play enough online blitz chess, not in serious circumstances, so his rating is not accurate. He doesn't do the grind like Hikaru, Tang, Naroditsky, etc. to get those massive 3,100 plus ratings. All right, he did step away from this game as it was starting, and now he only has a minute and a half. So he has ceded Frost Nova here a significant chunk of time, a huge chunk of time. And he's going to make up for that by playing the sharpest possible chess opening. Oh, he's playing the Dragodorf. He's not going for, just a Najdorf. He's going for the Dragodorf. We have A6 and G6 on the board. Oh, we cannot go anywhere else. This is our game. Until this game finishes with Peter Svidler ceding a halftime advantage, he basically berserked. That's what happened here. Peter Svidler basically chose to berserk this game. That's what it is. We don't have that button. Some other sites do have that button. And Peter Svidler was just so offended that we didn't have that button so that he couldn't berserk against this 3,000 rated opponent whose handle I need. Simon, give me this player's handle. Who's rated 3,000, whose handle I don't know here on Chess.com, right? He basically just manually berserked. He manually berserked this game and is now playing a crazy sharp opening against this Grandmaster. All right, F4 on the board. We're seeing this game from Svidler's perspective because I followed him to get this game. So we do have the black perspective on this particular game. Let me see if I can get this handle in another tab real quick. Oh my God. Tisk tisk. Frost Nova. Who wants to guess who Frost Nova is? Yeah, Mubot says Frost Nova is Jan Nepomniachtchi. And I totally forgot that we have that awesome thing in Mubot where you can type in who is and get an answer back. Frost Nova is Jan Nepomniachtchi. Did he change his handle? Because he's had La Chess is Q for a long time. Oh, wow. What disrespect from Svidler. What disrespect from Svidler. Berserking against Nepo. That's insane. I think we might have a small rules violation here where Jan might be using not his official account for this particular tournament. I think he should be doing that. Maybe. I'm going to leave that to other people to deal with. But I think he should be using his official account. All right, so we've got knights versus bishops. And the engine, at least for now, thinks that this is a balanced position, which is kind of crazy. Knight takes d3. All right, what's happening after this? Knight b4? So the king's going to move, and I guess knight b4. And even though this pin seems awkward, you're going to eliminate or force the bishop away. And maybe it's working? Computer is like up and down. It liked white's position, and then king g3 was evidently not the best choice, and who knows why. I have no idea why. It says it's Nepo on the account. So I'm going to take that at face value and assume that, yes, this is Nepo with the white pieces, Peter Svidler with the black pieces. I'm so glad that we clicked onto this game. Man, Svidler is great with the knights. And he's eliminating the light squared bishop. I think that objectively he's probably better. And that was 58 seconds to 58 seconds. So he berserked, basically. And now time is equal. So this is just incredible. Draw by agree. What? What? Come on. That was That was so unfulfilling. I feel incredibly let down. What happened there? Fiddler actually berserked, is now ahead on time, has the better position with an extra pawn, is eliminating the bishop pair. Tusk. Sadness. Disheartened sadness. I now understand what Fischer was complaining about. These unexciting draws must be planned beforehand. I'm kidding, of course. I wanted that to be super clear. Nothing but respect for both of these players. No idea, what the circumstances were. As an audience member, though, of course, we wanted to see this play out. We're going to check another game out. We're going to watch another game finish. But I think everyone here watching, you wanted to see the finish. You didn't want to see that draw pop up. Okay. Let's check out another incredible Russian player, Daniil Dubov, and another amazing Grandmaster playing black. There's just no shortage of fantastic players to watch in Title Tuesday. So we're watching Dubov versus Alexei Shirov. I think Alexei Shirov really does not get the credit that he deserves for being just an absolutely stupendous player. Probably this game is going more Dubov's way. And of course, Dubov is the higher rated Grandmaster at this point. But Shirov was up to number 2 in the world in the 1990s. And he was just playing some of the best chess of the entire decade. In the 1990s, Shirov was just amazing. He wrote a great book about his best games. He won some of the most brilliant games that have ever been played in chess history, right? Still super strong Grandmaster, but in the later 2000s and in the last decade, he hasn't been quite up there with, some of his peers like Anand and Kramnik, who are kind of similar in terms of age and just had some of the most insanely lengthy careers that have ever been achieved. This rook endgame is still complicated. Shirov, he's known for being a super attacking player, but he's also a great endgame player. Now, in this particular endgame, I think when we switched over to this particular game, he was always going to have a struggle. The position was very nice for Dubov, but I think people do underappreciate Shirov's skill in endgames. He's one of the greatest calculators in chess history, and calculation is really, really important in endgames. There's a reason that he played what some consider some of the very best move of all time in chess, Bishop H3 against Topalov. Look it up, Shirov versus Topalov, 1997, if you've not seen it. It's stunning. It was an in-game move, and Shirov is just a great in-game player. Stupendous calculator. Rashid in the chat says, Dubov is 70% a next world champion. Wow. I would like to bet against you. I feel like I could print money with some prop bets against you. I like Dubov, but 70% a future world champion? That is optimistic, sir. That I think is very, very optimistic. Congratulations to Dubov. He does win that endgame. He was pressing basically the whole time. I don't know if Shirov had a few better chances to defend. It seemed like there was a moment there where they were both very low on time, where Shirov was kind of getting back in it, but the advantage was always with Dubov, and really that's just fantastic technique. Ultimately, one of the things to remember in rook endgames is basically any time you get 2 connected passers versus 1 pass pawn, you're basically going to win. If the pawns are split, totally different. But as connected pass pawns, they provide really good shelter for the king, and you should be able to win basically any of these endgames. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but in terms of shorthand for a blitz game, it's useful because there's so many times that you're playing a rook endgame and you're trying to figure out how to simplify it to get a win. Try to get 2 connected passers versus 1 pawn. You'll mostly be able to convert that. Banana Chess says 69% chance that I think Dubov is a future world champion. So I do appreciate Banana Chess's balance. I appreciate that. I appreciate you kind of stepping back and going, I like Dubov, but I only think that maybe 69% chance he'll be the next world champion. I want to make sure that I'm balanced here. I'll take a percentage off. Okay. And Black wins that. That was the last game in this particular round. We're on to round 5. Ooh, question for the chat. As long as the topic of next world champion has come up, question for the chat. Who will be the next world champion? Like your pick. let's not use like percentages. I think that that's really, really hard. But if you have to pick a player who will succeed Magnus Carlsen, because as great as Carlsen is, and as hard as it is to imagine someone defeating him in a world championship cycle, in the foreseeable future, eventually there will be someone new. Eventually. Who do you think it's going to be? Oh man, I like Joshua Shang's answer. I'm just gonna lean back and kind of process some of these answers real quick here. We're gonna stick with Peter's Fiddler for a moment. We're gonna follow another game of Peter's Fiddlers, and then we'll try to switch to another player at the beginning of the next round. We get to see Peter having a full complement of time this time. He's not berserking. He's playing with his full 3 minutes. He's showing increased respect for Buffy 7. Why no standings view? We can actually switch over and show the standings view. We got some standings. And of course, every round that proceeds, the standings are a little more meaningful. Don't pay too much attention to the order right now because it's in tiebreak order. And honestly, tiebreaks are kind of arbitrary. It's not that Chess.com's tiebreak system is bad. It's that all tiebreak systems are bad, right? You've got over 700 players in the event. So many games going. There's just a lot of chance in the tie breaks. It's a little more meaningful as you get to the very, very end of the event, but there's a lot of luck in tie breaks. So right now, Fedosseev and Arjun Erigaisi have the best tie break, so they're at the top. But all these players on 5 out of 5, right, basically tied, right? And so the order here is not too critical. Fedosseev, Arjun, Dubov. I don't know who Young KID is. Young King's India Defense. Rasmus Fauna from Germany, Linnea Dominguez, Darius Fiertz, Exotic Princess is Jobava. We had requests to watch Jobava earlier. We will switch to him for maybe the later part of this round. Actually, if this game dries up a little bit, we might switch this round, and we'll try to follow him at the beginning of the next round as well. And Parhamov. And there are other players on 5 out of 5, but those are some of the players who are leading right now with a perfect score. Banana Chess says, how many 3,000 plus players are there on Chess.com? That is a great question that I am not going to be able to answer for you in this particular moment, but I encourage anyone who wants to go to chess.com/today. There are leaderboards on the side of that page. You can look at the leaderboards and you can say that there are exactly this many players who are over 3,000. That's all public information. It's not information that I keep up here. Sorry about that. Rashid says, how come we don't see new prodigies anymore? I think we absolutely do. Absolutely do. Now, I will say that a lot of times when you're talking about the newest prodigy, you're kind of looking at a player who is like 12, 11, and is playing in tournaments. It's a very of-the-moment conversation. And in 2020, we just haven't had over-the-board tournaments, unfortunately. It's very sad, of course. It's not the saddest thing about 2020. It's not the saddest thing about COVID. But for chess players, it is, of course, sad that we haven't had over-the-board tournaments. So the current generation of chess prodigies, right? The generation right now that would like to be trying to set a record and become the youngest grandmaster of all time, the youngest international master of all time, the youngest 2,700 of all time, right now, they're kind of stuck, right? They can play Title Tuesday and they can really impress. We can see them improving, but we're not seeing those kind of measurable record-breaking achievements because they just aren't having the chance because there's just not over-the-board chess. It's unfortunate. If you have a generational prodigy who had a chance at some records that really could have helped him get kind of funding, for the next 5 years as he's really pushing to break into the world's top 10, they're probably not going to get quite as many opportunities, unfortunately. But hopefully over-the-board chess will be back kind of in full swing in 2021. Hopefully we'll really be able to get a handle on COVID. We'll be able to hold more tournaments, and you'll hear about a lot of prodigies that you might not even be hearing about right now, that you might not have heard their name of yet. And in 2021, they'll be breaking out, and we'll see these players really shooting up the charts, getting those GM norms. Your favorite prodigies, Beth Harmon. obviously. She's just the most stylish prodigy. She's the most stylish prodigy. Also, Judith Polgar. I think Judith Polgar obviously is amazing. Everyone knows she's amazing. I don't know that she's still as amazing as she is, as universally considered and rightfully so, really and arguably so, is recognized to be the strongest female player of all time. I still don't think she gets the credit that she deserves for being in the top 100 players in the world when she was 12. It's an insane achievement. Absolutely insane. And the things she did as a teenager were just mind-blowing. So much good chess against the best players in the world. Okay. So, another draw. Peter's Fiddler is struck by draw-itis. Obviously not intended. Obviously, if he could play decisive games, well, he can't play decisive games. If he could have played decisive games in these last two games, he would have. Unfortunately, it just wasn't able to happen this particular round. Let's switch over and see if we can follow Exotic Princess, because I know people want to see Jobava. There we go. I don't know if his game is still in progress, but we're going to try. His game is still in progress. Super sharp. Really, we're only 36 moves. We're further in than I thought. There must be a lot of maneuvering in this game. So we're seeing him here against Dubov. He's playing black against Dubov. Very interesting game. Jobava has the bishop pair with the black pieces. A lot of trades coming on the D file. Kind of unavoidable. It's not a situation like we saw earlier with Hikaru where you can avoid the trades on the D file. The D file is too important in this particular endgame. Now C5 is interesting because it gives the D5 square to this knight. And I think that's why the eval bar is like, I don't like C5. I think it's because knight D5 is just going to be too strong at some point. And when you push a pawn, you can't bring that pawn backwards. Yeah. So the bishop pair, often a huge asset in the endgame. Here, not as much of an asset as you might like. This bishop in particular is really stymied at the moment, and the knight is superior to that bishop. So white is pressing, but definitely a hard position to win. One of the things about the bishop pair is that you're often kind of the one in control of liquidation or transformation of the position. You can often choose to exchange off the knight if you want to. If you have the bishop pair, you can often choose to exchange off and enter a different endgame. That gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of good defensive chances or offensive chances as the case may be. And now we're in an opposite colored bishop endgame. So black has used that ability to transform the position to enter an opposite colored bishop endgame, and now it's a draw. I don't know if white could have pushed. It felt like there was still some chance for white to try to press that opposite colored bishop endgame, but as soon as king e3 was played, nah, this is a draw. Half-half. I think the only way you could have tried to press that was by racing the king in on this side and trying to get after those pawns. Maybe in that case, you could have had some chance to win the opposite colored bishop endgame still, but didn't seem like Dubov really felt that. Maybe for very, very good reasons. So he brought the king back and the position kind of liquidates pretty quickly. All right, what about Hikaru? Okay, this game is over. Hikaru won. He's up 2 pawns. These are opposite colored bishops, but it's not a draw like we just saw. Instead, of course, this is just a win. Pawns are not being stopped. You can trade rooks, bishop can come back, but you just push one pawn, sacrifice it, and then you queen the other pawn. So that would have been the finale, and instead black resigned. Okay, a lot of games done now. Let's get a refresh on this games list. Okay, this game's also done. Linnea Dominguez versus Rasmus Fauna. Black just gave checkmate. Black just gave checkmate in this position right here. Interesting position. So black was pushing on the queen side, and it's a very interesting kind of situation where you're pressing on the queen side that ties your opponent's pieces down to defense, and then suddenly you switch over to the king side and the pieces can't hold, right? You're pressing on both flanks. Total control from Dominguez in this game. Really excellent stuff. Of course, Dominguez is another player who is just fantastic. Maybe doesn't get quite as much credit as he deserves because he's just a monstrous player, and his best games are so smooth. Incredibly smooth. Like that. Okay. I think the next round is starting in a moment. Not underway yet, though. Yes, 2 games left. Okay. If I switch tabs and I switch back, then I get the most refreshed games list. Okay, and a draw here, opposite colored, not opposite colored bishop, wrong colored bishop. Fortress there. And was that the last game? That might be the last game. Nope. 1 game left. And we have a rook endgame where black is trying to press with the extra pawn, but this is a draw. One of the reasons that this is a draw is that this king is cut off. Yep. And now this is going to be a bare king's draw, and the next round will start right now. And as promised, we will follow Jobava to begin this round. I had players wrong. According to comments in the chat. Rasmus was playing black. Rasmus Fauna. Okay, so not one of Dominguez's better games. Instead, one where he got outplayed by Rasmus Fauna. I had the names reversed. Thanks for correcting me. Okay, so we are following Jobava as promised to start. We have Jobava with the white pieces. We have Fair Chess on YouTube with the black pieces. That is Dmitry Andreikin. Andreikin is really one of the higher rated blitz chess players in the world, not just on Chess.com, but on other sites as well. And Jobava is, of course, renowned for his unique style of play. A lot of attacking chess. There's a reason that you have a thing called the Jobava system because of his opening innovations, his creative opening innovations. And here again, we see him with with an original kind of setup, right? He's played H3 and G4, which is certainly something. I don't know how to process it. The more important thing seems to be that he won the pawn on E4. And his exposed kind of king position here doesn't seem to be a factor, although Andreikin's trying to argue otherwise. So Jobava has an extra pawn, and Andreikin has basically gambited it for kingside attacking chances. So knight d6. Very interesting. I don't know what you do here. I think this is a position where Andreikin's going to be looking for a really aggressive solution to the position. I don't know if he's going to come up with something good, but I think he's going to try for something really aggressive. Like he might sacrifice like an exchange and try to go attack on the king side. I don't know if there's enough. So he's going to capture down here. Now there are possibly captures on b7, but that feels really greedy. This is going to win an exchange. Okay. So Andreikin had anticipated this. There's maybe a possible draw by perpetual on the queen here as the queen shuffles between g6 and h7. So one question here for Jobava is, does he allow this perpetual? No, he's going to retreat. He's going to allow the capture down here. I think that's the best move. Oh, queen d7 first. Very aggressive. Probably very, very strong. And the computer is not liking this. The computer did think that Jobava should be better here, but it's not a fan of retreating the queen all the way to b3, pulling it back on the queen side, and there's certainly a lot of attacking chances here available to black. What do you do here to press, though? Knight e4. Okay. Rook d1. Do you ever do something like g5, h5, h4? This bishop is really trying to hold everything together. I feel like you need to get rid of it. You don't want to trade here, though, I don't think, because you kind of improve the defensive formation that white has. Rook f3 invading, and now there's the threat to capture. So a trade. Okay. Is there a threat here of bishop takes h4 and then rook h3 and rook h1? As Hikaru would say, this would be the famous right triangle mate. Bishop takes h4 looks like a problem. How do you deal with that? I mean, if you do bishop takes h4, bishop takes rook over, there is pawn f3. But I think that pawn takes would be really strong. The bishop is still loose and the queen can come in on g4. So I think that bishop takes h4 is a serious threat from black. Pawn d5. Just pawn takes. Rook d4. So now there is the idea of rook takes e4 in critical moments, which could help fend off a checkmate. Computer's liking black's chances, though. This could be a really nice attacking gem. Okay. So the queen just encroaches. Queen is covering everything here. Super nice queen position. Pawn on b7 falls. Does it matter? Okay. Bishop takes h4 now. All right. And now after bishop takes, is it just rook h3? Probably still. Probably still just rook takes h3. But if you're not going to take on h4, then what are you going to do? Because there's just the threat to take down here. This is dumb. That's a big problem. Also bishop takes and then rook takes. All of these things are leading to mate. And the eval bar is saying that this is over. It's not impossible for us to see a resignation here. Rook c1, probably not going to do it. Ooh, you might have rook takes f2 here. Oh, I want to see rook takes f2. Does that work? Is that the best? Because after rook takes f2, maybe queen takes e4. I really want to see rook takes f2, but I'm not sure it's best at all. There's also some checks on the back rank. That's the other thing, right? So queen c8, trying to trade queens. The computer doesn't believe that this works, but of course you need to find a solution. And it's not so easy to do. Queen c8 trading queens is the main idea. Rook takes g3. Computer says no. Okay. So where's the perpetual? Computer's saying 0-0. Like this is a definite perpetual. But where is it? Rook takes e4. Basically necessary to stop queen g2 or queen h1, right? And bishop takes. Black is down, what? 2 rooks for a bishop. Rook over. And the computer likes white here? What? How does the computer like white here? Oh, if you take here, then the bishop is hanging. Oh. Oh my God, is this backfired? Wow. Suddenly it looks lost. Yeah, but this is probably not going to be something that you can defend. I mean, it's not entirely clear. But basically, how are you ever going to break through on the light squares? Like you can push this pawn down here, but the king is going to be a great blockader on the light squares. That's the thing about being an exchange down in these kind of endgames. There's some endgames that are better or worse to be exchanges down in. This is probably not a good one for black because you got one bishop and the opponent should be able to defend on the opposite color. Although black's king has gotten way more active than I think white needed to allow it to be. This black king suddenly raced down the board. Oh my God, now black is winning. Bishop h4. White was counting on rook h8 and missed that bishop h4 is going to happen and this pawn is going to promote. Bishop h4. White missed this move. White entered the pawn race too quickly here. White had 30 seconds on the clock, had time to calculate. The position was winning. I don't even know where the win is, but the position was winning according to the eval bar. But he entered the pawn race a little bit too enthusiastically, and suddenly bishop h4, and you're not able to stop this pawn. I think that rook h8 was definitely the intention. James Double says Jobava is a master swindler, which is 100% true. Let's be clear. Jobava is 100% a master swindler, an amazing player. There's a reason he's got so many fans in the chat. But in this particular case, Andrakin is going to be the one to get the win. All right. Wow, that was an exciting game. Let's back up, though. We have to see where the win was. Okay, so bishop takes h4. The computer's saying, like, negative a whole bunch. It takes some time to get there, but it gets there. And it's like, whoa, this is totally decisive. And let's flip on the computer analysis. Yeah, bishop takes h4, rook h3, just too strong. If f3, you just take, right? I'm going to put that on the board, right? This is a mate threat. If you try this to stop it, then after pawn takes, okay, black is temporarily down a rook, but this is still under attack, and this is a huge threat. So this is decisive, which is why he didn't take. So instead, he tried rook c1, all right? And yeah, I wondered about king h7. King h7 is the strongest move. You just avoid the queen c8 check, try to trade queens. You just avoid that. So king h7 is the strongest move. That move is really, really hard to play in a blitz game because you want an active move, right? You want an active move. But in this position, king h7 is going to be the strongest move. And if you then try queen c8, you no longer need to trade queens. You can go queen h5, which is kind of the most natural move. And the computer says rook takes g3 is even better. So rook takes g3, pawn takes, and then queen f3, with very similar ideas to what's seen in the game. So after rook c1 here, also I really wanted to do this, but I was ignoring queen c8, and that's just bad. So after rook takes, it's equal, but not an easy equal. And then queen f3. Okay. And you need to check from b8 specifically, not c8. There's no longer a trade of queens. You need to defend g3. Wow. This is a very, very impressive defense here. Okay, so this is the game continuation. There we go. King h7, rook takes e4, bishop takes g3, and rook f1. Rook f1 is so impressive here. If you could capture this without dropping the bishop on g3, you'd be doing well. But suddenly you're overextended here. Everything's covered. It's amazing. It's really incredible. King h7, rook c7. Let's look at that super quick, and then we'll get back into some live games. King h7, then rook c7. You're trying to go after this. Let me try not to look at the eval bar right away. Oh, next round is underway. I missed it. I don't know. Maybe you could even play like bishop f6, but you know, bishop f6 intending queen over to h5, that probably would be good enough. So there might be some other ideas, but I think that you could defend patiently in that case. That would probably be good enough. Okay. So Hikaru is playing against Manchuk. I really wish that player was Ivanchuk. No offense to the actual player. But if you're going to put Chuck in your name, you are going to have to live up to the fact that there is a player named Ivanchuk, and you're going to make people think of the Ivanchuk, and they are going to long for him. Less analysis, more games. That's fair. I basically did no analysis for the first half of this event. It's just this last game that got me super fired up. For the first half, I really wasn't doing analysis nearly enough. Okay, let me load some other games. Hikaru's underway here. Some other games that are underway. Nepomniachtchi is underway. Dubov, Andrakin, Sadwani, Jose Martinez. People asked for Jose Martinez earlier. We might try to switch over there. Okay. All right. So black is playing d4 and putting some pressure on Hikaru. Sadwani is playing Svidler. That game is still very much in the opening phase. In general, I think that the openings to these games have been relatively solid. Maybe one of the most exciting games so far. Pawn d3. So Hikaru is asking this knight to leave very, very politely. What a unique setup from Hikaru. He's probably going to close the center, right? He's got these extended pawns over here. This is a very weird position. Very, very weird position. I'm going to switch over really quickly and show this Frost Nova versus Arjun Arigasi position. I really like the rook lift. Probably rook h4, rook f4. This one could be a really nice attacking game from Jan Nepomniachtchi. I think he does super, super well in these kinds of positions. So we'll try and keep an eye on that. Also Jose Martinez here playing against Borsch 7. All right, interesting game. A lot of potential for tactics down these diagonals. So we will try and keep an eye on all these games and switch over as action proceeds. In this particular game, Hikaru is playing like an extended Benoni. I think that's the best way to describe this position. This is an extended Benoni. I don't know how many of you have seen Mikhail Tal's games of the Benoni. Mikhail Tal, probably the greatest attacking player of all time and a true warrior in the Benoni. This is like the Benonis that Mikhail Tal loved to play, except I don't even know how to put it. Screwier? It's a thing. It's really weird. I don't know why this pawn is on g5, and I don't know why this pawn is on h4. I'm sure that Hikaru would agree that the pawns don't belong there. That's not a thing you do in the Benoni. But in this Benoni, it is happening. And it's certainly going to be an interesting game. So the frustrating thing for Manchuk playing with the black pieces here is that you know that this cannot be good, that this is a bad opening, that you cannot play a Benoni with your pawns sent forward on the king side. This is not appropriate. This should be punished. But you're still playing Hikaru Nakamura, one of the greatest blitz chess players of all time, one of the greatest online players of all time, and probably, even though the evaluation is negative 2.39 in your favor, you might still be an underdog. And that's just disheartening. That's just disheartening. Q Hen says it's a Chris Littlejohn souped up Benoni. Littlejohn is Hikaru's second, but it's not Chris like that. Not like Christopher. It's spelled K-R-I-S. I lived in the same city as Chris for a while when he was seconding Hikaru. So we've played a few times. K-R-I-S. All right, bishop f8. So Manchuk has sacrificed a pawn to try and get Hikaru down this e-file. He would like to punish Hikaru. But will he be able to? Cast your votes in the chat. F4. Oh. And this knight is coming into e3. Or maybe g3. Wow. King f2. I think a rook takes e5 might definitely be a possibility at some point. The knight on e5 is the only good thing in the white position. Although, honestly, probably you just play like bishop d6 and you try and get rid of the knight like that. I think this knight went to b3 to come back to c5 at some point. It'll be great on c5. I think bishop d6 maybe. Negative 4.94. So we're getting into the territory where black should be able to force a win, but where is the forced win? It's not at all obvious. I don't think you have a forced win yet. I don't think you have a forced win. It's just very, very strong positionally. Even though white has an extra pawn, the king is not happy here. Look at this knight. Oh, this knight is a beast. Bishop f5. So bishop f5 felt maybe a little bit too not relevant, I think. Not the most critical move. I'm kind of wondering if Hikaru is going to try for bishop takes d4 and then queen takes e3. I think that might be what he's going for. Okay. Are you going to take on e5? Or do you play like queen e7 first or queen c7? You probably build up here. One of these moves. Oh, pawn f6 and then queen takes. Computer's a huge fan of black's play so far. And now any capture on e5, whether rook or bishop, is going to open the f-file. Probably rook takes is going to be the most forcing. Rook takes it is. Pawn takes, bishop takes, queen g5. Hikaru is trying for a queen trade. You can't go for a discovery yet because there will be a trade of queens here. Okay. So black probably, yes, queen f7. Okay, bishop takes d3. Okay, now you are down a rook. you need a confident continuation. Oh my god, this game is turning around. This game is turning around. Rook takes e3 because of queen takes g7 mate. Wow. Just king takes e2 would have been good, but okay, this is great. And oh my god, it's mate on the back rank. It's mate on the back rank. Oh! Oh my god. Oh. Oh. Man. I feel for black in that game. You were doing so well for so long, but eventually the clock. And Hikaru is just so good. Hikaru is just so good. This is unfortunately a game that the player with the black pieces, that Manchuk, will be remembering for a long time. People in the chat are commenting, LOL, easy win, never in doubt. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Let's take a look at some critical moments real quick, and then we'll try to switch to some other games. By the way, I was calling for mate on the back rank. That is because if you go over here, then just queen e8. Queen sacrifice, but okay. Everyone in the chat knows this. This is a back rank checkmate. Game over. GG. Also, it's not surprising that if the king goes to f8, there's a way to finish the game. In this case, what looks very efficient is rook f1, bishop takes, and then this rook can check. The bishop is trying to cover two rook checks, and it cannot do so. So that would be a nice way to force checkmate. Very, very pretty stuff. So where was the decisive continuation for black? This feels like a critical moment. The computer is saying negative 4.93. The computer loves the black position. Where is the finishing blow? It looks good at first to play rook takes e5. I was calling for that. Maybe that was a bad thing. Maybe I shouldn't have been calling for it. I mean, you can also do like bishop takes d3, maybe, and then try to take... Oh, there's so many ideas. I'm going to look at the computer analysis and give you the best suggestion from the computer. Okay. Computer likes rook takes e5 at first. And then it thinks that Hikaru should take here. Okay. After f takes, bishop takes e5, queen g5, queen f7. This is all good so far, but after rook takes b3, now black needs to be precise. I think bishop takes d3 is okay, but the computer really likes rook f8. Very patient move, hard to play that. Bishop g4 looks more forcing. Okay, so bishop g4, the king goes back to e1. Oh. Rook f8. Rook f8. Wow. So white is up a rook here. Hikaru is up a rook. And evidently this is totally crushing. Now, there is an idea of queen f2. That is a brutal idea. Almost impossible to stop. One pretty thing here is if you try to defend queen f2, you can see rook to h2. Okay, actually bishop takes is possible. Bishop takes is possible. There are many things, but in this position, what I liked, what I wanted to show was queen f1, bishop takes, rook takes, king over, and then rook d1. So there are better things. There are easier things. Maybe not better, but I really wanted to show this queen f1 and rook d1 hookmate thing. That was really pretty. So after rook f8, this seems to be too strong. King d2 seems like the most natural move. Still queen f2. Just the idea of piling up here is crushing. If you try to defend, and I think this is really the only defense of this right here, what's going to be the fastest continuation? Maybe you have knight f1. Knight f1 actually looks really, really good. Computer says bishop g3 and knight g2 are actually the most decisive. All right, that works. Also bishop f4, ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, rook f8 is the silent killer. You're still down a rook, but you just pile up and it's overwhelming. But at this point, you have so little time, very, very hard. Okay, let's look at some of the other games. We couldn't help but take a deep dive into that game. That was very exciting. Very, very exciting. Love that. Congratulations to Hikaru. Monstrous victory. That's going to leave a psychological mark. You know, Bobby Fischer said that he loved the moment when he broke his opponent's ego. That's one of those moments. Okay. Actually, we're taking a break now. We're going to be back in a few minutes, and we'll be continuing with round. All right, welcome back everyone. We are here for rounds 9, 10, and 11. We are closing in on the finale to Title Tuesday. As we do that, I'm going to quickly give you a survey on the standings at the moment as the players are beginning their opening phases to the games. We do have Rasmus Fauna, Daniil Dubov, and Frostnova, who is Jan Nepomniachtchi in top. They are on 7.5 out of 8. So they've only dropped a half point. They've won 7 games. They've only dropped a half point. Really, really incredible performances so far. But just behind them in 7 out of 8, on 7 out of 8, we have, I think the scientific term is a buttload of super talented players. We have Arjun Erigasi. We have Mkhitaryan, who's Martyrosian. We have Hikaru Nakamura. I think you guys have heard of him. We have Santo Blue, Vahap Sanal, Valery Sviridov, an NM who consistently overperforms, Champ 2005, Ronak Sadwani, Linier Dominguez, Nuber 1198. I'm struggling to remember that player's real name at the moment, but super strong IM from India, Giga Kuparadze, and Belodio, whose name I'm also forgetting. Someone can post it in the chat. And Draken, Alexei Shirov, whole bunch of other players, Jabava, Bortnik on 6.5 out of 8. All of these players are really still in the mix here as we play these final 3 games, but probably the ultimate winner is going to be someone who is sitting on 7.5 or 7 out of 8 right now. So we're going to be trying to focus in on these players' games. The top game at the moment is actually, I think, not even Dubov versus Hikaru, although that is one of the top games because Dubov is on 7.5 out of 8. But Fauna versus Nepomniachtchi, if they're playing, yeah, that even might be a higher seeded game. All right, Hikaru's going to try and press this in-game with a slightly better pawn structure, but probably black is okay. We'll be back at some point. But first, let's switch over to the Fauna Nepomniachtchi game. Okay. Where is it? It's here. I swear. No, it's Fauna versus Andrakin, and Nepomniachtchi is playing... No, that's an earlier round. Yes, it is Fauna versus Nepomniachtchi in this game. Sort of a forced pairing. Since they are both on 7.5 out of 8, we are going to follow this game. It is a tense in-game at the moment. Fauna is one of the most talented young players here from Germany. And of course, Nepomniachtchi is the star of the Russian national team, one of the many stars, but one of the top-rated players on the Russian national team. And Jan Nepomniachtchi is also leading the candidates tournament right now, along with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. For the first time in history, we have a tournament on hiatus, a candidates tournament on hiatus due to COVID, and Nepomniachtchi is one of the leaders, along with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. So there is a very distinct possibility that in 2021, he may be playing a World Chess Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. And on a personal level, he's got one of the best scores in classical chess against Magnus Carlsen. So that could be a really exciting World Championship match if it happens. Yes, Frostnova is Nepomniachtchi. I don't know when he changed his name. It's not the first time he's done it. It's not the first time he's gone by multiple handles, but he is Jan Nepomniachtchi. Jan Nepomniachtchi as Frostnova with the black pieces. Okay. Is this going to be a draw by perpetual? Are we just going to see a repetition? We might. The game is balanced. In the final rounds, you often do see a repetition like this. Okay, bishop to b6. Is there fighting spirit here? Is there fighting spirit here? Yeah, I don't know why he's using the Swedish flag. You're not allowed to play on an anonymous account in Title Tuesday, and the account does have his name. So if he was trying to be anonymous, that's over. He'll have to make another account for that. He'll need to coordinate with us on that one. Okay, so we are seeing the players play on. I think one question here is who's trying to win? Nepomniachtchi is the higher seed. You would think that he's trying to press, but I'm not really sure who's trying to... who really feels like they are legitimately in possession of the better position and the right to press. Right now, the computer's liking white. I mean, white does have the only open file, but black is able to contest it. White does have the bishop pair, but these pawns are doubled. So the position looks kind of dynamically balanced at the moment. I guess one thing I don't like is that white has this e5 square for the knight. Okay, and bishop back to a5. Very interesting move. Computer does not like it though. I don't know why. Computer's like, not bishop a5. Okay, and bishop back to c7 to try to hone in on this square. I think b4, b5 is something you'd like to do, but it's very hard to do. And now the rook is hit. Knight check. So if king f6, there's knight takes h7 check. And that's forced. So white has stolen a pawn. Okay. All right. Are you going to move the rook and try to win? Yes, he moves the rook, rook a8. I kind of thought that even though white had stolen a pawn and should press for a win now, I kind of thought that it might be possible we would see a belling out. Also, the knight is not super safe on h7, and so bishop h6 is trying to trap it. But pawn to h4, you can always get that knight out. It should be safe. It shouldn't get trapped unless you're not paying attention. Okay. So, an extra pawn for white, the better position, but not an easy position to press in. I think you got to trade rooks now. He's thinking. I don't know what the other candidate move was. Okay. And now I think you're going to have to play knight g5 check. Played. All right. And this is a position where white should win in the long run. You've got an extra pawn. You've got the bishop pair. It's definitely not a position where the bishop pair feels very good at the moment, but eventually, in time, there should be an opening of the position. Like you'll be able to make some trades with moves like pawn g4. You'll exchange some pawns, and you'll press this position. Eventually, the position will gradually open up like a flower ripening to the sun, and the bishops will prosper in good time. Who else feels queasy due to that analogy? I suspect everyone here. Overuse of analogy. I'm also wondering here about pawn b4, b5. I really want to do that. I guess b4 is always getting met by pawn b5 from black. So anytime b4 happens, there will be b5 in response, I think. I can't get these arrows on the board before they make their moves. Okay, but you get the idea. I don't think you can allow the pawn to get up here. If you do that, then the exchanges are going to open the position in a very favorable way for white. Okay. So I do think, okay, this is a huge achievement for Nepomniachtchi. This is a huge achievement. Okay, he didn't meet it with b5. Instead, he maneuvers his knight to b5. And now, actually, the extra pawn is gone. I think it was already a huge achievement when the exchange of pawns led to an extra pawn over here, but the continual closing of the position. Okay, white's king is a little bit more active. Ooh, okay. Computer is not a fan of that. You didn't need to give up that pawn. All right, so white is in a position that should be enough to win. King back to f4. This is an extra pawn over here. It should win the game. Okay, but check, and you pick this up. All right, the g pawn is racing forward, though. The g pawn is moving quickly. This bishop always has this. Okay, you can't take here because of knight f4 check. That's not possible. Okay, computer did not like that. Wow, there's some exchange. There's some exchange of errors here. Computer's like, yay, nay, yay, nay. Okay. Oh wow, suddenly Nepomniachtchi is winning. He is winning. The pawns are moving too quickly. Fauna went for a continuation where he gets an extra piece, and it just does not work. The black king is too active. The pawns are too strong. Wow. Wow. Black wins on time. But black was winning on position too. That's insane. That's insane. I am Shang in the chat says tie breaks. High is good. That is true. That's about all you can say about tie breaks. All right. What was the other game? There was Dubov versus Hikaru. We really should go over there. Maybe that game hasn't finished yet. I don't know. We should at least see the finish. Looks like it did finish. Yep, Bear Kings. Draw in that game. So Nepomniachtchi is going to be leading with 8.5 out of 11. 8.5 out of 9. We haven't got 11 rounds yet. So we got 2 rounds to go. 8.5 out of 9. But he is going to be in sole first place. So Jan Nepomniachtchi pushing for a victory here. 8.5 out of 9. Dubov, Santo Blue, Behapsanal, and Sadwani are on 8 out of 9. I think almost all games have finished, but we don't have the next round yet. Okay. Yeah, 2 games left. Not really critical games for the standings. We'll pull up one of them. So white is trying to win this endgame and should win this endgame. This is easier to win than just queen and rook. The fact that the pawns are on the board makes this a little bit more comfortable for white. In fact, the black rook is trying to maintain control of the 5th rank and is not going to be able to do it, so white is going to be able to use some checks to pick off this pawn. Okay, this probably wins 2 due to a sequence of checks that picks up the rook. Okay. I think it would have been more accurate to just take the a5 pawn, but here we go. K Poco says, Nepo moved to Sweden. It's really interesting that when someone changes their flag on Chess.com, you guys are like, they must have moved countries. That's definitely more feasible than them just going in and changing a setting. Definitely. Or making a new account and then choosing a random country that they thought was funny. Sweden or North Korea earlier. That has been a repeated question today, and I think the answer is usually they just changed their flag and not that they moved countries and then changed their flag, because they would have to do both. Yeah, or trolling. Trolling is very likely. What can be explained by trolling is usually actually trolling. Trolling is the simplest explanation to most confusing things. Okay. Where is Jan Nepomniachtchi's game? I'm going to pull it up. We're going to follow Nepomniachtchi until the standings really change here. We're going to stay focused on him. Come on. Refresh. Okay, got it. There it is. It wasn't loading at first. Finally got it. Okay. So, Nepomniachtchi is black again. He had black in the last game. He had an unfortunate pairing draw. Black 2 games in a row. Ronak Sadhwani is pushing here. Super talented, very young player from India. He's been cited by none other than Viswanathan Anand as one of the bright hopes in Indian chess. There are actually many bright hopes, but he is one of them. This is a very interesting position. White has the half-open c-file to work with, but black has got the pawn on a5 that's making it hard to push b4. And white's going for that now, trying to achieve b4, and black is trying to make sure that some exchanges happen that open the a-file and give him some activity if the pawn pushes up the board. Because if you could push the pawn to b5 without any consequences, you'd be very happy. Then you'd have real pressure here. Okay. And a very cool knight maneuver. Knight back to d8, knight to e6, kicking the rook off of c5 and defending very securely the pawn on c7. And in fact, the computer thinks that black is already better. So very nice strategic maneuver by Nepomniachtchi. Suddenly it's the b5 pawn that might be the weakest pawn. Wow, he could win this game as well. He's pushing in this game as well. Computer says that f4 was the best try here by Sadhwani. He is trying to open the position. If you trade down here, then you get a very strong central pawn mass. On the other hand, if you allow a trade here, actually the bigger threat here is not to take. Definitely not to take. It's to push f5, and f5 would win the pawn on c7. And that's very hard to stop. I guess you're going to have to play g6. Nope, we get the exchange. And it's the bishop that captures. He's going directly after c7. Okay, so actually this might be likely to lead to a liquidation. Yeah, and an exchange on b5. Now I think that this is a position that, in theory, white should be able to press, right? Computer says it's dead equal. But white has the stronger central pawn mass. Oh, nice move. Knight to d4. Also, the bishop should, in some positions, be superior to the knight. Are you playing rook c5 here? No, probably rook c5 is very bad. I think rook c5, you're running into bishop b6 at some point. So the bishop, the rook comes back to d7. The bishop is staying on c7 for the moment. The king steps up to f2. K Paco, I don't. I believe you, I don't, though. All right, king to g2. Are you playing pawn e4 here? I think so. He's thinking about it. So he's very hesitant about the idea of pushing the pawn to e4. Instead, he's going to go bishop back. Okay. And knight takes e2. Notice that rook e1 runs into knight f4. So the rook attacks along the second rank instead. And the knight is struggling to get out. Is the knight trapped? The knight is trapped. Oh, wow. Wow, Sedwani suddenly gets a win. Okay. You defended. It's d4 though, right? Is the rook able to maintain its defense along the second rank? I think the problem is that the d-pawn is pushing forward in too strong a way. No, the problem is that the king steps up, but now you can just go back. So rook e5, you need something different. Oh, maybe you can attack from f1. You got to go back to e5. You don't have anything better. Can the king attack from f1 and then after rook over, you can block with bishop f2? Okay, and suddenly we're back to a draw. I think it was king f1. I think if you attack the knight from f1, you could meet rook f5 check with bishop f2. Of course, the huge difference between me and Sedwani in this particular moment in time is that I'm seeing the eval bar. I'm not seeing the computer recommendations, but I am seeing the eval bar, so I know that there should be a win. And he tried this king f3 idea, which almost won, but rook f5 kind of repeated the position. So knowing that there's a win, you can kind of look for some small improvement on this idea that almost finished the game, and it seemed like king f1 was enough. So he's now going for bishop f2 and back to f1, and the computer is now saying it's still a win. I don't know why it wasn't a win a moment ago. The computer said that there was some way out, and now the way out is gone. I don't know what the way out was. I don't know. Someone told him. K. Paco says someone told him. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that you're serious either, but I don't think that that's true. I think that Ronak is just an amazing player. And you win the knight. The knight had nowhere to go. That's incredible. Do you win the game though? Yeah, Ronak is only 14 years old. Super talented, very young, amazing player. Do you win the game still? This is a plus-minus position. If it was computer versus computer, I would expect the computer to win all the time. But this is human versus human. And white's pawns are not going anywhere. And black does have some chance to create some counterplay. There's an active king. There's pawns pushing forward on the king side. Not an easy position to win. I think that the exchange of rooks does help. Okay. It's also helpful for white that you always have an extra pawn on d4. And that pawn might not go anywhere anytime soon. But you always have a passed pawn. It really takes out any possibility of fortresses. It makes it much harder for black to liquidate all the pawns, which would be one of the best drawing mechanisms available to black. So that's not going to happen. King e4. Okay, king g4. How does white make progress here? It's not so easy. You want to blockade the pawns, and you want to push your pawn. Very difficult to achieve both of these things. So if this rook moves down, you have rook e5. I think rook e5 now? Yeah, and rook e5 is really helping out. Now king g4 maybe? Yep, and this is falling. That is a huge, huge move. Yep. This pawn is relatively easily contained. Rook h5 coming, I think. d5. Okay. Rook h5. You've got this pawn under control. You're going to be able to push this pawn. I think rook h6 and then pawn d6 is actually really nice. Yeah, he's going to go for that. Pawn d6 here. Yeah, and now the pawn is securely defended by the bishop, and you can take down here. You can play rook e3 next move so that black king can't get into a defensive position. Or this. Okay. And king up. And this is very, very smooth now. Ronak Sedwani, 14-year-old grandmaster from India, does defeat Jan Nepomniachtchi, who was leading the tournament with 9.5 out of 10 on 8.5 out of 10 now. And Ronak moves up to 10? What? What is that point total next to his name? He can't be on 10, can he? No, he's on 9 out of 10. This point total is wrong. I just took a screenshot because on my screen, and you guys can see it too, Ronak is listed with 10. He's got one game to go. He's on 9 out of 10. He doesn't have a perfect 10 out of 10. But either way, Huge achievement from Ronak. He is leading this tournament, right? He's leading it with Daniel Dubov. Dubov evidently won his game. We didn't see that. Did he win? Or was he on 8.5 and he drew? I'm not sure. My memory's failing me. You guys might remember. Okay. Congratulations to Ronak. There are, I think, a few games left in this round. Let's try and check in on some of the other games while we wait for the next round to start. I think most of the top games are finished. Yes. Most top games are done. Fauna played Hikaru. Hikaru won. Rook endgame. Had to figure out which way the pawns were going first. James Double says, Jan is so hard to beat in Blitz. That's absolutely true. Jan is an amazing Blitz player. Jan is an amazing player, period. We all know that. But he is a particularly amazing Blitz player. I've heard it said that Jan is actually more talented than Magnus Carlsen, but Carlsen is a bit of a harder worker on the game. I don't know that that's true. And I think Jan definitely works on his game, right? Anyone who's that talented, that strong, has to be a hard worker on their game. Absolutely. The idea that there's some super grandmaster who's like 2,800 and just doesn't practice, that's not a thing. They practice. They may practice in different ways, but they absolutely practice. But I do think the idea that I've heard from some Russian trainers that Jan may even be more talented than Magnus Carlsen is an interesting idea. And certainly when you see him play speed chess, it does feel like he's just got a very intuitive kind of grasp on most positions, and he moves instantly. It's just also fluid. When he wins, he makes it look so easy. Champ 2005 is Ronak Sadwani. James Double says Ronak has had like 2 seconds in a row in Title Tuesday. I didn't even know that. So Ronak has been pushing for a win in Title Tuesday for a while. Maybe he's going to get it today. We are going to follow his game. So I'm going to move away from Hikaru. Apologies to Hikaru, but we are going to follow Ronak. Okay, that's his game he finished. We need to follow him for this round. Now the Grandmaster thing. And Ronak is a young Grandmaster. Obviously, a very strong Grandmaster. But the Grandmaster thing would be to take a draw as quickly as you can. So we'll see if he does that. I don't know that he's going to do that. Certainly his last game does not suggest that he's playing for draws. Okay. Bring me the game of Ronak. Still can't find it. This one? Nope, that's Gukesh. I followed him. The game should be in progress unless he agreed to a draw like right away or something. Should be this game against Giga Kuparadze, right? Why is this game not loading? Oh, Giga's playing Hikaru. Who is Ronak playing? Why is that game not pulling up? You guys tell me. It's against Dulles and it was already a draw? Ah. It was a 20-second draw. Hikaru's game popped up. I tried to go find the game. It was already a GM draw. Ah. Already a GM draw. The traditional sadness that you have in Title Tuesday. You get to the end. You're excited about these final matchups. You're going to get some good chess in the final rounds. But a lot of times the really exciting chess is seeing the players who are a step back from the leaders trying to catch the leaders because the leaders draw. Ronak, 14 years old. Super talented. Huge achievement. But someone in the chat said that you finished second in 2 Title Tuesdays in a row. I don't actually have the data, but 2 Title Tuesdays in a row at 14 years old. That's insane. That's insane. Congratulations. If you want to finish first, you're going to have to push for that win, man. You got to push for that win if you want that first place. You can't take that 20-second draw. Come on. All right. Said with love, of course. Ronak is the best. Okay. So he is leading the tournament right now. He's on 9.5 out of 11. Draw guarantees the win. But not the sole first place, right? That's what you're fighting for, right? Come on, he's trying for sole first place, right? Right? There's going to be, I think, a big pileup on 9.5 out of 11 in this tournament. Big pileup. A lot of 8.5s trying to get to 9.5. Fair enough. It is hard to turn down a chance at that top place money. All right, Jan is pushing for a win here. He's on 8.5. He's playing good cash. He's on 8.5. This game is probably going to go for a while. It still looks balanced. So Jan is going to try to be the player coming out ahead in this balanced game. Last game, he didn't come out so well. It actually was an overpress. But in this game, he's going to try to come out a little bit better. And the computer is saying that it's starting to trend his way. He does have an extra pawn over here. All right, let's try and check in on some of the other games. I think that some of the other games might be a little bit more exciting. No offense to these players, but it is an in-game at an early stage. We do have a very dramatic game here between Andrakin and Borsch 7. So Andrakin has got 8.5, Borsch 7 has 8.5, so a winner here moves up into a tie for first. And wow, look at these pieces that Andrakin has. He sacrificed a pawn to get them, but monstrous rooks on the open e-file. Certainly the f-pawn feels very vulnerable. Okay, so bishop g6 to try to defend that f-pawn. But can you just play h5, h4, h5? Yes. According to Andrakin, yes, you can just play h4, h5. And the computer seems to agree. The computer is loving this. What do you do? Maybe knight f8 trying to exchange queens? So it is knight f8. Hard to think of something better. A queen trade. Okay, but this isn't a kind of drawish position. I'm sad to see the queens leave the board, but this is not a drawish position. Actually, you just picked this up. Was the rook trapped? The rook was trapped. I forgot about this being available to cover b8. So the rook was just trapped. Okay, Andrakin should win. He's up a clean exchange. He's got a dominant rook on e7. He's about to bring another dominant rook into the position. And Andrakin should win. And he picks up a pawn on h6 too. All right, let's see if we can check in on some of the other players who are racing for that tie for first. Oki says, do tiebreakers count? Tiebreakers do not affect the prize money. Tiebreakers do not affect the prize money. Pippinchuk says, Andrakin missed bishop takes c5 or pawn takes c5. B pawn takes c5. I didn't see that though. You probably mean bishop takes. Should be a capital B. I missed that. All right, another one that looks very good for white. This is Sergei Zhigalko versus Bogdan Deek. Bogdan was actually one of the youngest grandmasters in the world a little while back. He's now maybe in his upper teens, so no longer one of the youngest grandmasters in the history of chess, but still a super talented player. Zhigalko, I know, has some records in Blitz and Bullet. In this case, both players are on 8. So they're trying to chase the pack that is chasing the leaders. And it looks very good for white. White is up a pawn. And that was not good. Why is that not good? Bishop takes c6 looks good. You pick up a second pawn. Why does the engine say this was a bad idea? Oh, the rook can take. Both players were blind. Wow. The rook can take. I missed it. Both players missed it. Instead, the queen takes and white is up 2 pawns. Wow. You expect me to miss that, but you don't expect these grandmasters to miss rook takes. They should never leave that available. They're too good. But everyone is human. Pip and Chuck, have a good time. Anything by Dvoretsky is great. I hope you enjoy that book. Or as Ludwig would say, Dvoretsky. All right, white is winning this game. We should switch to another game. Okay, we missed the end of Hikaru's game. Hikaru won this one. That puts him on 10.5. Wow, Hikaru had a great event. Okay, Hikaru playing a little bit of a Benoni structure. This one went a little bit better than the Benoni that we saw earlier, although he did win that game as well. All right. And there's one trick here. One trick here. If you get 2 moves, you get mate. Hikaru stops that. Queen f5, attacking the bishop. And then Hikaru is just winning against Giga here. I know, only 10.5 out of 11. Hikaru underperforming. 10.5 out of 11. I want to be super clear. This is a bug. I don't know why it's a bug, but it's definitely a bug. Hikaru does not have 10.5. He's had a great event, but he's not on 10.5. He might have moved up to 9.5, and that's actually a tie for first, which is incredible. Great job there, but this is not 10.5. Okay. I was incorrect earlier when I said that tie breaks do not affect prizes. Tie breaks do affect prizes. Tie breaks do affect prizes. They didn't used to. In the current iteration of Title Tuesday, tie breaks do affect prizes. So, with that in mind, number 1 is Ronak. Number 2, Dubov. Number 3, Hikaru. Number 4, Andrakin. Number 5, Nepomniachtchi. All of these players are on 9.5. I don't think that any of the remaining games are going to affect this top 5. I think that the top 5 is locked in right now. Yeah, there's only 2 games left. I was incorrect. I know. I don't know why it's a bug. We will fix that bug. I am using the beta right now. I am using the beta, which has some improvements, but there are some bugs. And one bug I just discovered is that sometimes the score is wrong in the little standings grudge score thing. Don't know why that is. We will get it fixed, but evidently in beta, that is an issue. So we will get that addressed. So the tie breaks are basically based on score of the opponents. If you search what is tie breaks on Chess.com or what are the tie breaks on Chess.com, you'll find a support page. And you'll get information about that. I think that the tie breaks are pretty close. So I'm not sure how tie breaks are affecting it. Actually, Simon's going to have to give me some information because I'm not sure how tie breaks are rippling through to affect everything. Okay, so the names are actually showing up in white here. So they're really, really not readable on this pop-up here, but it's actually irrelevant. Because again, final tiebreak standings are after sorting Hikaru because it's affected by other players' scores. The tiebreak standings that we had a moment ago were not finalized because there were still games going. So Hikaru actually gets first on tiebreaks after all of the games are in. So Hikaru has first on tiebreaks, then Andrakin, then Sedwani, then Dubov, and then Nepomniachtchi. So that's the top 5. That's the top 5 in tiebreak order. So congratulations to all of these players. I think that 5 players tying for first is the largest tie for first that we've had recently. I haven't seen all of the top lists, but that's a large tie. It's unusually large. Congratulations to these players. And Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is pointing out correctly that Sedwani and Dubov actually have the same tie breaks, so they're kind of sharing third. But obviously, all of these players, congratulations on a huge achievement, 9.5 out of 11. You know, these are kind of regulars at the top of Title Tuesday, and they're regulars for a reason. They're just amazing at Blitz Chess. Hikaru, Andrakin, Dubov, Nepomniachtchi, you should know these names. If you're following Blitz Chess online, you've seen these players. If you're following classical chess, you should have seen these players. But credit to Sedwani, who's still only 14. Credit to Sedwani for making it into that tie for first at the age of 14. Sedwani is a player that you may not have heard of yet. If you're following chess, he's been so talented for a while. I think you probably should know the name, but there are definitely going to be people in the chat who are not familiar with him. He is one to watch, still 14, super talented. I think if you follow prodigies, you've probably heard of Nihal Sarin, you've probably heard of Pragna Ananta, and Sedwani's name should be in the same kind of discussion, the absolute same kind of discussion. He's just a monstrous blitz player, super talented young player, and definitely going to be like a 2700 Super Grandmaster at some point in his life. Just a matter of time. Yes, Frost Nova as Nepomniachtchi. Why did the numbers on the right change? That is because the standings are based on the score that the opponents achieve. So you play 11 different opponents across the course of the event, and your tiebreak is affected by how those 11 opponents score. So if your opponents do really, really well, then you get a better tiebreak than if your opponents do really, really poorly. And so while there were still games going on, then the full tiebreaks weren't completed yet. The full tiebreaks could not be calculated, for a final tiebreak score yet. So once all games are done, then you have the information. Is the bald guy better than Harman? No, bald guy is not better than Harman. I know because I tried to play the bots. So they're obviously exactly calibrated to Beth Harman's skill level, and yeah, that 2700 bot is better than me, unfortunately. I also had the bots try to play Magnus. I got the app out. I was like, all right, I got one app. I got two apps. I got Beth Harman bot. I got Play Magnus bot. Let's do age 22 versus age 22. Tried that out. Turns out Magnus Carlsen is also better than Beth Harman, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on your point of view. Unfortunately for me, because I was hoping to see a really beautiful game, and instead Play Magnus crushed the Beth Harman bot, which kind of makes sense. I think a 22-year-old Beth Harman who didn't play chess for like 4 years consecutively in middle school and high school probably wouldn't be up to the kind of caliber that Magnus achieved by age 22. Best 22-year-old ever. Has anyone ever achieved a perfect score entitled Tuesday? Great question there. The answer is no. Not with 11 rounds. There have been perfect 9 out of 9s. In fact, Bortnick achieved one. And I think people didn't know who Bortnick was, and he got a perfect 9 out of 9 when people were like, wow, who's this guy? And now he's known as one of the best blitz players in the world. I don't think there was ever a 10 out of 10. I don't think so. Someone can check me on that. And there's definitely never been a perfect 11 out of 11. All right. Guys, we're going to wrap up here. We're going to hit Anna Cromling with the raid, so stick around if you haven't checked out her stream. She's super fun. If you want to check me out, you can check me out at twitch.tv/Sam Copeland. I do streams solving puzzles, playing games, whatever you want. Try to be responsive to the audience. I've also got a YouTube channel, youtube.com/bestofchess. And of course, a lot of these players here entitled Tuesday stream, including Sadwani and Draken, not Dubov, Nepomniachtchi, and of course Hikaru Nakamura, and a whole bunch of other players who weren't in that top 5. So literally 4 out of the top 5 players entitled Tuesday stream. You can follow them. Check out their profiles. Go check those out. You'll find a link to their channels, and be sure to watch them next time they are live. Some of them are still live right now, and you can hear them describing their thoughts live to you. It is the most amazing thing in the world. The best chess players in the world explaining what they're thinking playing blitz chess to you. I know that a lot of you are very familiar with this, so you take it for granted. Some of you have never seen this before, so you're like, whoa, that's insane. But seriously, the best players in the world stream now, and you can and should follow them. All right, thanks everyone. I hope you had a good time today. I will be back at some point in future, and everyone have a great Tuesday.